तेजोऽसि तेजोमयी देहि वीर्यमसि वीर्यं मयि देहि बलमसि बलं मयि देहि ओजस्योजो मयि देहि मन्युरसि मन्युं मयि देहि सहोऽसि सहो मयि देहि।
यो ब्रह्माणं विदधाति पूर्वं यो वै वेदांश्च प्रहिणोति तस्मै तं हदेवम् आत्मबुद्धिप्रकाशं मुमुक्षुर्वै शरणमहं प्रपद्ये। Namaste everyone. In this video we are going to discuss the importance of self-control, the importance of the value of ojas. तो ये सब शब्द हिंदी में हैं. So I'm sure many of you are using it. हम बोलते हैं ना तेजस्वी, ओजस्वी. So we will try to understand the entire mechanism of this higher energy and how it helps in our spiritual striving. Also for students, sometimes you see disciplined life, there is a kind of resistance against that. But the value of discipline, anybody who has attained any level of success knows it. That unless this energy is trained and guided in a particular way, and you consciously take this decision, you cannot actually achieve. So we will try to understand everything that there is in the scriptures. Not, of course, we can't discuss everything, but whatever we can about this higher vital energy and the importance of self-discipline in order to achieve whatever we want to achieve in life. Especially the scriptures and spiritual traditions of the world insist upon this, that it is only one energy. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed, but it can be transformed from one form to another. So when you transform very gross level energy into something very subtle, it gives you a deeper awakening, as it were. It transforms your consciousness. In fact, this is the only way to spirituality. So we will discuss what exactly this vital energy is, how it works, and what is the method of transformation, how exactly do we do it. This is all of practical value, especially in student life. In the Vedic age, the life of a student was called the Brahmacharya ashram. For the simple reason, it is a ashram where you conserve energy and transform it into something bigger. So you get a bigger slice of life, as it were. Now, we should understand the fundamental fact about energy. See, the laws of energy are the same everywhere, whether it is external energies, nuclear energy, gravitational, electromagnetic energy, or the energy coursing in our veins, what we call vital energy. It is all energy. It is all prakriti. Its nature is movement. Its nature, very nature is that it is changing, it is moving, and you can decide the course of its movement. You can decide the direction of its movement. According to that, you decide the level of your evolution or devolution, whatever. So this vital energy which is within us, loosely it is termed prana. But different people, I found, understand different things by this word prana. For the simple reason, prana is to be felt in your system, to be understood. It is not an intellectual concept. It is not an idea or something found. In the Upanishads also you have this word prana being used. If you go to Upanishads like Prashna Upanishad, there are whole discussions on prana. So why it is designated as vital energy is, it is what activates all our organs, the entire system, as it were, and it is what is responsible for our vitality. So vitality is such a common denominator of our experience that we don't realize it until you lose it. In the sense, when suppose somebody gets a fever or some kind of a paralysis or something like that, then that person understands that there is a definite lowering of vitality in the system. Vital energy has been removed. So then you acknowledge the presence of vital energy, but the very function of life, the feeling of life, full awareness is due to the harmonious functioning of this vital energy. Just like how when you look at a bulb, you don't recognize the amount of connection and flow of energy that has gone into that light. It's something like that. When we are fully aware, we don't see that energy. Energy, of course, cannot be seen, but it is there, and it is due to its functioning that this is happening. Not that, you see, if prana is satya, the Upanishads say, then awareness, chaitanya, atman is satyasya satya. It is actually consciousness that is activating prana. But when we are talking of transforming our present consciousness into the highest, this is how we can understand it, that the mind becomes more and more alive and conscious to its depths when this energy is regulated. So the source of everything definitely is Brahman. There is no doubt about that. But we have to work on our vitality to become deeply aware of this cause, to go to the primordial cause. What is required is to become deeply aware, and for that, the use of vitality is most important. In fact, all sadhana pertains to increase of vitality, and that is why it is considered that all sadhana is actually Shakti sadhana. Brahman himself doesn't have to do sadhana, but through sadhana you attain to Brahman. So, through Shakti sadhana, through handling this vitality well, we attain to the highest knowledge. Even for material knowledge, for the level of concentration it demands, you require a regulation of inner vitality, isn't it? Without that regulation, harmony will not prevail in the system. And when it doesn't prevail, then all sorts of all kinds of thoughts, intellectual and emotional obsessions, and all the wrong orientation of the will, all this can happen. It's all because the pranic flow, the harmony of prana in the body has been disturbed. And this can happen due to a variety of factors. So a little bit of yoga in everyday life, and by yoga I mean meditation here, will sensitize you to the movement of energy in your own system. And if this can be committed towards the highest cause, it will yield the highest awareness. This is the whole point. So how exactly do we direct prana in our body? Through the power of our attention. Yes, you can fix vital energy anywhere in your body. It is already flowing. I don't want to go into the different channels, the nadis through which it flows, but that is there in the video on meditation, all about meditation. You can watch that if you want. But essentially, the prana flows through conduits called nadis. And there are certain junction points where this energy can be concentrated. So these junction points were called chakras in the past, and if systematically prana is focused and raised through these chakras, the highest illumination is possible. This is the Kundalini Yoga. But essentially, if we want to develop our powers of concentration and memory and riveted attention, then it is important to study this behavior of prana in our own system. Let us remember this, that experience unfolds as per the movement of this energy. Experience unfolds as per the movement of this energy. Understanding of the importance of vital energy and fixing the mind at higher junction points. See, he says, I am reading from the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. There is much similarity between the 7 planes described in the Vedanta and the 6 centers of yoga. The first 3 planes of the Vedas may be compared to the first 3 yogic centers, namely Mooladhara, Swadhisthana and Manipura. With ordinary people, the mind dwells in these 3 planes at the organs of evacuation and generation and at the navel. When the mind ascends to the 4th plane, the center designated in yoga as Anahata, it sees the individual soul as a flame. Besides, it sees light. At this, the aspirant cries, what is this? What is this? When the mind rises to the fifth plane, the aspirant wants to hear only about God. This is the Vishuddha chakra of yoga. The sixth plane and the center, known by the yogi as Agnya, are one and the same. When the mind rises there, the aspirant sees God. But still there is a barrier between God and the devotee. It is like the barrier of glass in a lantern, which keeps one from touching the light. King Janaka used to give instruction about Brahmagyan from the fifth plane. Sometimes he dwelt on the fifth plane and sometimes on the sixth. After passing the 6 centers, the aspirant arrives at the 7th plane. Reaching it, the mind merges in Brahman. The individual soul and the Supreme Soul become one. The aspirant goes into Samadhi. His consciousness of the body disappears. He loses the knowledge of the outer world. He does not see the manifold anymore, and his reasoning comes to a stop. Kailinga Swami once said that because a man reasons, he is conscious of multiplicity and variety. Attaining Samadhi, one gives up the body in 21 days. Spiritual consciousness is not possible without the awakening of the Kundalini. So you see, the highest possible realization is connected to this vital energy or prana. And to the extent we conserve it and direct it properly, to that extent higher experience unfolds. So what we are calling ojas in Hindi, both tej and ojas, is nothing but this highly refined pranic energy turned upward, energy coursing upward in the human system. What it does is it gives a different kind of vibration to the body, a very positive, beautiful vibration, reverberation, and it also gives a kind of refinement to the features of the face. There is a kind of calmness. The face and the features appear lit up. And the energy, due to its upward motion, results in good health. Due to the absence of blockages, it results in a complete harmony within the system. Mentally, it results in deep concentration, medha. It results in deep awareness, prajna. It results in dhi, this, you can say, the higher intuition. It results in dhriti, which means a very, very sattvic, solid will, which is turned towards the, the highest in human life. And it also gives shama, of feeling of forgiveness towards all beings, a benign outlook towards all beings. One who has not handled his own energy properly cannot have this kind of a karuna, compassionate outlook to all beings. So all this is part of the ojas, the power of ojas. And the highest spiritual page, which is knowledge, comes when this energy finds its fulfillment in the Sahasrar, as you just heard. So this is actually the paradigm which is used both by Shakta philosophy and Shaiva philosophy. The Shiva Shakti Aikya results in the highest knowledge. So you see, sadhana is usually to do with the manipulation and handling of vital energy so that it reaches its consummation in Shiva, in the knowledge of Brahman, the highest knowledge. So this is the power of ojas. That is why it has always been held to be very, very, something very sacred, something very transforming. And whenever we do Shakti Puja, within us Shakti dwells as this Kundalini energy. It is seen like that. How we handle the energy in our system will determine the extent of our progress and experience in the spiritual life. Another thing which I would like to point out here is, we must remember that there are factors in our life which mishandle this energy and which can destroy them. Like, for example, strong impulsive behavior and you can say a kind of obsession about certain things. You will find this in many people. Without vivek, you can have very strong you can say, inclination towards things which lead nowhere. And you can have intellectual obsessions. All this can happen unless we have regulated the energy within us. These are all like blocks. It results in finally in the hedonic treadmill experience, which means you are chasing something, even though you know it leads to nowhere, it doesn't bring fulfillment, yet you can't but do it because that is the sanskar created by the experiences like these. And the feeling of joy that comes from sense objects, although it is trivial, transient, it is addictive in nature. So it puts you on the hedonic treadmill, on the treadmill of pleasure, and then you can't get out of it. So all these kinds of effects happen when this energy is not handled properly. The natural course and the flow of this energy is upward. But because we don't know this, we tend to invest it in anything that falls upon our system, anything that impinges upon our system. You may be carried away by some thought current, you may be carried away by some particular object, by some perception. So all this can happen. Where we invest our vital energy is very, very important. And according to that, the life unfolds within ourselves. So let us remember this, that it is entirely in our hands, depends on our will, on our vivek, the way we can handle this energy. The result of handling this energy well is, as I told you, a kind of regulation within ourselves which gives us a deep sense of peace and a peaceful state of mind. The mind remains calm and clear and very, very, like as if you are living in the Himalayas. It feels like that. You are living in a perpetual calmness and cool, an intense cool atmosphere within yourself if this energy is handled properly. Otherwise, it's like fire. It can completely cool you down or it can destroy you, depending on how we handle it. So, the body changes as a result of ojas, the mind changes completely, the emotions change, the lifestyle of course will change. Everything changes when this energy is handled properly. In fact, this is the real Shakti Puja, to be able to worship Mother who lives within us as this vital energy. And the Upanishads and many of the Shastras speak about the value of this energy to the human being. It ennobles life. It changes the course of life and the very pace of human evolution. The human being is the only being who walks erect, which means he is in a position to direct this energy upward. Please check this out and see. All animals walk on their fours. The chimpanzees may appear to be walking erect, but only for a short time. Then again, they are on their fours. And they are tilted forward. Only the human backbone is made such, it is made in such a way that a human being can stand fully, completely erect. And that enables the flow of energy upward. So we have you can say, edge in our evolutionary process due to this. And that is why the very purpose of being human, what is the purpose of human life? It is to be able to touch the divine. It is to divinize human life that we have this human life. So the way we handle our energy will determine finally where we go. So when it comes to discipline, let us not be careless about disciplining our inner energies, because depending on how we will handle that energy, we will be experiencing life. This energy can also be completely dulled, which means it can be made so small, so tamasic, that we get a very small bit of light. If the energy is not treated properly, it works against us. If the energy is not raised, it will stagnate, and it will stagnate and choke life itself. So please remember, energy, its nature is movement, and its nature is change. So let us make sure that the movement is upward, and we use the change to unravel deeper aspects of life. This is the real Shakti Puja according to our scriptures. If we can handle our own vital energy. See, it's very easy to change objects in the outer world. It's easy to build objects. It's easy to be things in the outer world. But to build the inner life and make the essential changes within ourselves is a Herculean task. So that is why sadhana, how we finally handle this Shakti, this power within us. This is the point. Let us now look into what Vivekananda speaks of about this energy, about Ojas. Vivekananda says, the yogis claim that of all the energies that are in the human body, the highest is what they call Ojas. Now this Ojas is stored up in the brain, and the more Ojas in a man's head, the more powerful he is, the more intellectual and the more spiritually strong. One man may speak beautiful language and beautiful thoughts, but they do not impress people. Another man speaks neither beautiful language nor beautiful thoughts. Yes, yet his words charm. Every movement of his is powerful. That is the power of Ojas. In every man, there is more or less of this Ojas stored up. All the forces that are working in the body, in their highest, become Ojas. You must remember that it is only a question of transformation. The same force which is working outside as electricity or magnetism will become changed into inner force. The same forces that are working as muscular energy will be changed into Ojas. The yogis say that part of the human energy which is expressed as sex energy in sexual thought, when checked and controlled, easily becomes changed into Ojas, and as the Muladhara guides these, the yogi pays particular attention to that center. He tries to take up all his sexual energy and convert it into Ojas. So it is only the chaste man or woman who can make Ojas rise and store it in the brain. That is why chastity has always been considered the highest virtue. A man feels that if he is unchaste, spirituality goes away. He loses mental vigor and moral stamina. That is why in all the religious orders in the world which have produced spiritual giants, you will always find absolute chastity insisted upon. That is why the monks came into existence giving up marriage. There must be perfect chastity in thought, word and deed. Without this, the practice of Raj Yoga is dangerous. So these are Vivekananda's words on how to handle this energy and how important it is to see that this energy meets its purpose, consummates by giving us true first-person knowledge of the highest. Now, what are the practices congenial to the practice of this? What exactly do we practice that we are able to handle our vitality well? The first thing to practice is a regulated lifestyle. See, for young people, because I work with a whole lot of young people, I know this is difficult. Due to their everyday routine, they have got used to a kind of routine where they are not able to keep a fixed time for the different things they have to do. So, at least after you are through this phase, you must make sure that your lifestyle becomes very disciplined. Because what happens is, when you do the same things at the same time every day, your mind gets used to it and it will not in any way resist any form of discipline. And at the same time, the same kind of feeling will come, the same thoughts will come. It will help you in your meditative practices also. So regulated hours for waking, for your food, for exercise, for sleeping, for studies, everything, a kind of regulated life is very, very useful in the conservation of energy. Then second most important thing is the company you keep matters a lot. If you keep the company of the really high-minded, then you will yourself rise. So be careful and choosy about the company you keep. Those who want to go really high in life, they want to reach the summit, they must be very, very careful about this. And then another thing is, especially in the modern life, a whole lot of things are impinging on our senses all the time. This tremendous amount of exposures to all sorts of things. So control that a bit. This is important. When you lead a very regulated life or disciplined life, all our senses must be a little disciplined, so that you focus on the good. You focus on that which is giving you sattva. You focus on that which is ennobling to the mind, which is beautiful to the mind, that kind of a thing, and avoiding sensuality. So these things become important in a life of sadhana, because remember, the way our mind functions, whatever thought we repeat in the mind is going to become sanskar, a deep mental impression, stay in the subconscious and come out as memories. And these memories inspire further action. So this entire package can be taken care of if we regulate our exposures. Because usually you are thinking about what you see, what you hear. So when you regulate that, you automatically regulate the inner thought, emotion, the sanskar, mental impression and memory cycle. So then your actions will always be predictable. The conduct will be very good. The very look on the face will be very different. The people who practice these forms of disciplines, they become very sattvic, calm, bright, peaceful, full of energy and positivity, and their level of self-awareness is very high. So this is all a possibility. Another beautiful method for practicing this is the chanting of the Gayatri Mantra. There's a video on the Gayatri Mantra which you can follow, and you can chant at least 12 times Gayatri every day. It will reinforce this higher purpose in your life, and the Gayatri itself has a lot of spiritual potency. It will unfold the higher awareness. It will help us unfold it. And then another thing is some form of yoga or meditation every day, just to help you, keep you sensitive to the energies traversing in your body and to keep your will aligned to the highest ideal. Some form of everyday meditation, at least for 10-15 minutes. And then higher studies, what is called Swadhyay. This is mandatory because our minds are so active and our minds are so energetic that unless we keep them engaged in the right stuff, they can turn towards all sorts of things. So make sure that higher studies is part of your life. Every day reading a little of Vivekananda, something from the Bhagavad Gita, the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. If you keep in touch with all these things, you will see the mind will stay at a particular wavelength. It won't come below that. It won't come down. So Swadhyay, higher studies, is very important even for the development of Medha, the higher intelligence. You will start connecting ideas wonderfully. You will deepen your awareness. And it's a delight to be engaged in higher studies. So you develop, finally what happens as a result of all this is we develop a higher taste. A taste for the divine. A taste for the Leela of the divine. The play of the divine in this world. A taste for the knowledge of the divine. A taste for the scriptures. A taste for the higher life. So developing this higher taste will counteract all our lower tendencies. Prasavarjam rasopyasya. This is the meaning. The rasa for lower things will go when this higher rasa develops in us. And when param drishtva nivartate, the highest, the way to eradicate all the lower sanskars is to finally realize the highest. So why they tell us all this is, the higher taste has to be developed, becoming sensitive to the inner spiritual life, so that our very outlook and thinking is geared towards the highest. Also, let us remember the negativities of our culture, an exaggerated sense of oneself, one's personality, or body consciousness. All this has to be undermined. You keep a little distance from all this, because what happens is, it is giving you a false picture of reality. So whatever is not true, keep a little distant from that and concentrate on what is essential, what is most important. If you take this particular motto, simple living and high thinking. That itself will enrich life like anything. What happens as a result of all this is you get to taste a bigger chunk of life, a bigger slice of life, as it were. Because when you deepen awareness, you taste more of life. So that is why you see purity in thought, word, deed. This was part and parcel of Indian cultural values. Look at the Ramayana again. I will give you that example. How beautiful each personality there. What a remarkable, shining character. They were all like flames of purity in thought, word and deed. And that is why this high level of culture, Sabhyata, is possible. So this is the idea. In fact, there are so many incidents in the Ramayana which I can point out towards. Sri Ram's personality itself was such. Whoever looked at him touched something of divinity. Yes, their face would become effulgent when they just looked into his face, because for the simple reason, he radiated that level of, you can say, the inner effulgence, the inner light. And Mother Sita was so pure, the very embodiment of purity, that nobody could look at her and not bow down. She was like that. Her very behavior, her conduct, her speech, everything radiated. You see, where there is purity, there will be the Matru Bhav. Naturally, they go hand in hand, they go together. So, even as a young woman, she radiated this feeling towards all beings. So, this is the glory of the pure life. It brings everybody to peace. It transforms everybody, and it gives the deepest fulfillment, inner peace and joy. So these are the actual facts about self-discipline, self-control. This transformation of normal body consciousness is very essential for higher spiritual fulfillment. In fact, for a real sadhak, when he says I, what he means is not just the body. It is something far beyond that. And in the lives of great masters, you can see very well their identification with the body was so minimal. That is why the monks could touch the highest heights of real spiritual realization. There's this beautiful incident in Vivekananda's life when he was in New York. In those times, there used to be those wall mirrors, like these long mirrors stuck on the wall. And one day, one of his devotees, Ellen Waldo, she was his student, she saw that Vivekananda was walking in the room and gazing into the mirror repeatedly. So then she suddenly thought, it came to her mind, oh, he's full of pride. Now the bubble will burst. And suddenly she heard Swamiji saying, he turned back and he said, Ellen, it's the most wonderful thing. As soon as I remove my eyes from the mirror, I don't remember how I look. I don't remember how I look. See, what should be the nature of that mind which can say that? Usually when we think of ourselves, the picture of the body appears in the mind. But that would never happen to Vivekananda. He would completely forget how he looked. Only the mirror, as it were, reminded him, oh, you are in this body. So this is the level of the Mahapurushas, the level of their minds. Vivekananda himself would later on say, when you say I, if the picture of the body appears in your mind, that long you are a dualist. Only when the picture of your body no longer appears in your mind, you can claim to be a non-dualist. So the idea is this: body consciousness doesn't go hand in hand with spiritual evolution. Because body is only the instrument through which we are functioning, through which the human being expresses himself. It is not him. It is not his nature. The spirit is verily the nature of everyone, and the instrumentation through which the spirit expresses itself is the body and mind. So if we have wrong identifications in the most primary things of life, then how will we proceed? So actual maturity, emotional maturity, spiritual maturity means correcting this self-image. Understanding this, that essentially I am spirit, I'm not a human being having a spiritual experience. I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. I'm functioning through this body and mind and using it as my instrument, but I am not this. In fact, to identify only with the body is to insult your true being. So, only purity will give us a real inkling and opening into the real nature of things, into our real identity as pure being. See, actually speaking, this cannot be doubted. My own being is absolutely free and not connected with the body and mind at all. That is why I'm able to even objectify mind and even my body. See them as objects, study them as objects. So this sense of pure being is what is the real identity, unchanging existence and identity of the human being. To the extent we identify with that, we will remain free from the troubles of the body and mind, the troubles of the body and mind. But if due to this ignorance, this covering of Maya, if we are not able to recognize this and live only in body consciousness, that's a very small animalistic way of living. So this is the value of ojas and purity in life, self-discipline, self-control. It really gives you a bigger slice of life, deeper understanding into life, seriousness about life, and deep inner peacefulness and joy. To the extent we are able to understand this, enter into it. You can do it only through sadhana, and so let us make it part of our lives and fulfill ourselves. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.